Good morning, guys. How's everyone doing? A lot of familiar faces in the crowd. So my name is Dhaliwal. I'm sure some of you picked up that I am English. And being English, I have to start with an apology, because we apologize for everything. I am massively jet-lagged and really over-caffeinated. So if I go too fast, if things aren't clear, come and grab me in the break. Be very happy to have a talk with you one-on-one. So as I mentioned, a little bit about me. I'm Dhaliwal. I've been fortunate enough to be at the inception of Slack's customer success team. I joined in the third week of its existence. And I was the first member outside of the US. And I had the distinction of opening the London office, which for several months looked a lot like my dining room. Hands up here who knows about Slack. This slide is pointless then, basically. So a little bit about Slack. Slack is a messaging app, for those of you who aren't familiar. It's designed to connect you to the people and the tools that you use every day to do your work. And our mission at Slack is to make people's working lives simpler, more pleasant, and more productive. That mission seems to be going pretty well. So as of the end of last year, we hit 4 million daily active users. Increasingly, our revenue is coming broadly from much more from international sources. And we have a really sticky product. People like Slack, and they spend a lot of time using it, over 2.25 hours a day, in fact. So stickiness, and I've been told no one in America knows what a sticky toffee pudding is. This is a sticky toffee pudding. Stickiness is really key for us as success professionals. We want to make our product sticky. And what's the best way of doing that? The best way of doing that is to make our product really valuable to the customer. Actually show that it's having a material bottom line impact on their business. But to make our products valuable, whether it's Slack or your products or services, we've got to get people to use it. So adoption is absolutely key. Now, you're probably wondering, like, I've got a great product, people love it. What's the problem with adoption? Well, I'll tell you what the problem with adoption is. It's these two guys. And I'm sure you're familiar with these two guys. So we've got Justin here. Justin is super cool. He's an engineer, works in a dev team. He read about Slack on TechCrunch. He's like, I love this thing. I'm going to buy it with my credit card. Before you know it, 300 engineers are using the product. And then Justin's company says, oh, this looks pretty good. We should look into this. We should buy this for everybody. And poor old Bob here, Bob works in accounts. He doesn't know anything about Slack. He doesn't care about it. He's got his email and his SharePoint and all this other stuff. He's happy. And this actually fundamentally describes the problem with adoption. Bob has been told to use Slack. Justin wants to use it, right? So we need to help Bob. We need to help Bob through the change and find a new way of working. And I think that's summed up really nicely by this. This is a quote from Jerry Dunn, who was at the time the CIO of Nestle. And it really, really encapsulates the problem. When we're deploying software or service, it's not about the technology. What we're doing is asking people to change the way they work. And change is really hard. I have a friend of mine who's a change management consultant. He says, the only person who likes change is a wet baby, right? So what we've done, we spent a lot of time at Slack thinking about this problem and thinking about the Bobs of the world, the people that need help with this change. And so we've created this change and adoption method, which I'm going to walk you through right now. Now, this change and adoption method is purposefully designed to be simple and easy to explain because we want to teach the customer how to do this. And it focuses on that people side of technology and change. And we're going to go through it at a very high level, each of these sort of phases or buckets of this change method. But overall, it's designed to do a couple of things. It's designed to raise the awareness of Slack. And when I say Slack, just substitute that for your product's name, right? It's designed to raise the awareness of Slack, to create a desire to use it, to give people the knowledge about how to use it, and then apply that knowledge to the day-to-day problems that they are trying to solve in their work. And most importantly, to sustain that new way of working. And this is a thing that we've learned from experience, both inside and outside Slack, that if you don't sustain the change that you're asking people to participate in, it won't stick. You might get a lot of good adoption up front, and eventually it'll tail off. So let's dive in and take a look at each of these. So people and purpose is really about defining the need for the change. People are much more ready to accept a change if they understand why the business is going through it. And we want to define that change in business terms for a number of reasons. So here's a really good example of a business reason for a change, a business reason for using Slack in this case. There's 3 departments we want to get together so we can ship our products 20% faster, right? We have a business metric now. So as we roll this thing out, as we ask people to participate in change, we can go back and we can have a look at that metric and say, are we moving the needle on it? Are we getting close to that 20%? Now, that's only part of the equation. The other part is people. And change can't be imposed from the outside. As success practitioners, we can help facilitate that change. We can help educate the customer on what's needed to be successful. But we really need people internally to buy into this change and help us drive it. And in particular, our executive sponsorship and our middle managers are key. They are absolutely critical to this effort. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Yes, we all ideally want an executive sponsor to sponsor our rollout of our product. But at Slack, what we found is that sponsor needs to be active and visible. So active meaning they are actually out there using the product, promoting the product, tying it back to those business goals and those business needs, and explaining to people the cost of not changing, because that is just as important as explaining why we need to change. And our middle managers are absolutely essential because they're going to be leading use cases or business level use cases in their department, and they need to show by example, and they also need to be there available to answer questions and help people through the change. So that brings me nice and neatly onto business uses. Business uses or use cases, I'm sure, is a term you're all familiar with. This is all about making, in this case, Slack relevant for the employees. But one of the key things that we've learned is that business uses or use cases have a maturity level. And if you start with the wrong level of maturity, you're going to impact the user by asking them to go through too much change too early, right? So what we found is finding use cases that just help people adopt, lightweight ones. For example, here, we're just going to publish our newsletters on Slack, or we might just do an executive town hall on Slack. That's a really good, simple way with minimum change impact to get people to use. And then over time, we want them to engage in their day-to-day work. So we want to make sure that they have the knowledge and ability to take that early adopted use and turn it into their day-to-day work. So in this case, managing a project. In Slack, a marketing project, we'll integrate all our marketing tools. Everything's in one place. And finally, the ideal way to, the ideal we want to get to is we want to embed, in this case, Slack, into core business processes. So, for example, I'm going to initiate the order of a part or a process from within Slack. And what our learning has told us is if you start off with uses that are too sophisticated, that have too much of a change impact, it really has a negative effect on adoption. Now, setup is something we're all familiar with. We all spend a lot of time setting up and configuring or helping our customers configure our products or services. And what this is really about in our change model is actually about making sure that we're following the compliance and support needs, but that users know where to go for help. So these are just some of the things that we do. I'm not going to delve into these in any details. But they're all designed to remove barriers to adoption. So we want people to be able to use our product from wherever they're working on whatever device, while still making sure it's a compliant service. But most importantly, we want to make sure that people know where to go for help. And when they go for help, they get a good positive response. And this is based on our learning, is this the bit that customers often miss out unless we really drive it home with them. So the research and the data shows that if you're going through a change, you have a problem, you go to get help, and that experience is poor, you are less likely to follow through with the rest of the change. And finally, we're talking about the change components. Now, it's kind of weird to talk about a change methodology and then have a section called change, because change actually underpins all of the steps that I've just run you through. But what I want to focus on here is that while we're doing all of these things as we go along to raise awareness, to drive a desire to use the product, to impart people with knowledge, we need to reinforce that change. We need to sustain it so that when we've launched and when people are adopting the product, there isn't a tail off in use. So very key to this is communications. So pre, during, and post the launch of our product, in this case Slack, we want to make sure that our executive sponsors are active, visible, our middle managers are pushing out the right messages about the need for change, the risks of not changing, and especially for the middle managers, how this is going to help you to do your job, and by leading by example. And we want to use different channels to do that. So it may be you might use the intranet, or you might use emails, or even one-to-ones or team meetings. Training and enablement is obviously something as success professionals we spend a lot of time on. And the way we think about this at Slack is there's two parts to this. We want to impart knowledge about how to use our product. So terminology, features, functions. But most importantly, we want to help people translate that knowledge into an ability to use our product in their day-to-day work. So specifically those use cases. So we've taught you about the product. Now let's teach you how you can take those feature functions and apply them to the workflow that you do every day. And then finally, the ongoing awareness, the sort of sustaining and maintaining that change. Once we've launched, once we've adopted, we don't want to just stop there. We want to reinforce for everybody how the change is going. We want to share success stories and keep up the momentum, because otherwise we run a very big risk of the change just tailing off and people reverting back to their old behaviors. So how does this look? And don't worry, there's not going to be a test on this, I promise. We take our 4 steps that we run in parallel. We spend several weeks with the customers setting those up, especially, and then the change pieces, which underpin everything. And then we try this out with an early adopter group. And at that point, we pause, because what we want to do at that point is get feedback. We want to know, are the communications correct? Have we got the right people involved? Have we got any technical barriers that are stopping people from using the product? We make some adjustments, and then we go on to our next group, and so on and so forth. And then those groups can get bigger and bigger and bigger, because we're learning more about people's readiness for change. So when it works, it looks a lot like this. So you'll see here that we have a customer trundling along fairly flat level of usage. We put in a change program with them. We spend some concentrated time. Very rapidly, we see a big, big drive up in usage, which is ideally what we're all looking for, because that leads to this. Faster adoption, hopefully more incremental revenue, and preferably a much bigger renewal. So some key takeaways, because I'm conscious I am the man standing between you and a much-needed coffee. Adoption is much more than just deploying the technology. It's about introducing a change and helping people through the change in the new way of working. And change is really, really hard. So if you remember one thing from this session, start making the case for change early. All of the research shows that customers who deploy software as part of an overarching change program are 6 times more likely to achieve their business goals. But a lot of customers don't think that way. So it's our job as success professionals to educate them and make that case early, make it in the pre-sale stage, because for the long run, you'll have a happier customer and you'll get bigger renewals. So with that, I wanted to thank you for listening to my over-caffeinated blurbings. I'll see you all at the break. Thank you very much.